Everybody can see? Everybody's good?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. You don't have to stay for the whole. Kamel? You don't have to stay for the whole thing.
No, just
Just to make sure it's
Yeah.
working? Okay. All right. Whenever you're ready. Okay, so welcome everybody. So this is week 6 of the Competitive College Club, and today we're going to be talking about the Fulbright Foreign Student Scholarship. This is a great opportunity for Algerian students. It is the one scholarship offered by the U.S. government for graduate study in the United States. So what we're going to be talking about today is I'm going to give you a little introduction to what the Fulbright is, and we're going to start to consider, is the Fulbright the best option for you? Some of you have explored applying to schools on your own. Some of you have applied to PhD programs. For some of you, the Fulbright will be a primary option. It'll be that which you are putting the most hope into. For others, it's more of a fallback option. For others, it may even be an alternative. We'll talk about if the Fulbright is a good fit for you. From there, we'll look at the application. We'll talk about the application requirements, the timeline, where and how you're going to submit the application, and most importantly, what makes the best candidate. So what parts of your application should you really emphasize? How should you construct your application? What makes for a successful candidate? We'll briefly talk about some other short-term, non-degree professional exchange opportunities. And then at the end, I definitely want to make sure we leave time for questions. With us today is Erin Tyler, our Assistant Cultural Affairs Officer.
Welcome.
And Amina, our Alumni Affairs Coordinator. Now, Erin actually worked for Fulbright, placing students in universities. So she has seen literally thousands of successful Fulbright applications. Erin actually did the Fulbright interviews 2 and 3 years ago here in Algeria. I did them last year. So somewhere in this room, there is someone that has looked at Fulbright applications within the last 3 years in Algeria. So we have a lot of knowledge, and we incorporated a lot of feedback from the Tuesday section to try to address some of your questions. So what I'm going to ask is if you please hold all questions until the end. Okay, and then if you still have a specific question about the scholarship program, we'll take that question then. Okay, so as we are videotaping this, we want to share this with people on the internet. Okay? All right. So what you should have in front of you is a general handout on the Fulbright Foreign Student Scholarship. Okay, just a handy reference guide. You're welcome to take notes on the back if you'd like. So what is the Fulbright? Well, the Fulbright is a scholarship for Algerian students. It is a graduate scholarship program, which means that you earn a master's degree as part of this program. We'll talk in a little bit about what sort of degrees qualify into this and what don't. It has a competitive interview process. So it's run and funded by the United States government. You will apply. We will select a number of students to interview for the program. And then if we select you, you will then become a nominee. We'll talk more about this process when we get to the timeline section. It's open to all Algerian students, and it is, as I mentioned, run and administered by the U.S. government. Students earn master's degrees. Now, the best advantage of the Fulbright Foreign Student Scholarship for you as Algerian students is it is a scholarship that covers all costs. As we talked about in week 3, or if you've ever been to one of my other outreach presentations, or if you know anything about the U.S. higher education system at all, one of the first facts you may run into is the fact that it is very expensive for graduate study in the United States. It's not just a question of your tuition, but also your room and board, your books and supplies, room and board, by the way, meaning your housing and your food, your health insurance, your personal expenses, and your travel to the United States, as well as your visa fee and your CEVIS fee. We can't forget those as well. Now, scholarships, as we talked about in week 4, are often possible. Week 3 for finances. But they often only focus on the tuition amount. However, the Fulbright application covers all of these costs. Okay? They will cover the tuition, room and board, books and supplies, health insurance, personal expenses, your plane ticket to the United States. And Erin, does it cover the CEVIS and visa application fee as well?
It does.
It does. So that is literally every cost. So if you have 0 dinar in your pocket and you are selected for the Fulbright scholarship, you should be able to study in the United States, okay? Literally zero, not even one of the dirty 200 dinar bills that's all crumpled up. So, what types of degrees can you earn on a Fulbright scholarship? Well, they're master's degrees, very similar to what you have here in Algeria. It's the second level of degree. You have an LMD system, yes, the M is the master's. We don't have a master's 1 and a master's 2. We have what the most common are what we call masters of science or masters of arts. Now, masters of science are going to be your hard science degrees, engineering, chemistry, biology. Your masters of arts is not arts like painting, it's your masters of liberal arts. So teaching, writing, reading, history, sociology, psychology is actually a master of science, but you get the point from there. So my masters are in masters of arts. They're both masters of arts because they were. Political science is a master's of arts degree. It's not a real science degree. An MBA is a master's of business administration. A master's of business administration, excuse me. A master's of business administration is a degree that in the United States that's designed for business professionals. And it's especially targeted towards people who are in the mid-level of their professional work experience, managers and things like that. Most MBA programs will actually require professional work experience before accepting applicants. The Masters of Architecture and Masters of Education are pretty self-explanatory. The LLM is a Master's of Law, and that's designed specifically for international students to understand the American legal system. It doesn't necessarily make you a lawyer, although in rare cases you can actually pass the bar exam and become a lawyer. The LLM is designed for people that work internationally to be able to interface with the American legal system and understand it. So if you work for an international company, or if you're an Algerian lawyer that wants to work on cases in both countries or that cross borders or things like that, an LLM might be a good degree. And then Masters in Public Health is something related to the health field. Now, what you don't see up here are medicine and pharmacy. Medicine and pharmacy, or for that matter, law degrees, are not considered master's degrees covered by the Fulbright program. So if you're hoping to earn a pharmacy degree, if you're hoping to earn a doctorate or a PhD, the Fulbright would not be a good fit. That being said, if your ultimate goal is to earn a PhD, the Fulbright might not necessarily be a bad choice. Several Fulbright students, I won't say many, but often Fulbright students will go and they'll earn a master's in the subject, and then once they're at the university, they'll identify fellowships or follow-on research opportunities, and then continue on at that school or another school and earn their PhD with funding that they've guaranteed from their university. Unsurprisingly, especially for advanced graduate work, it's a lot easier to guarantee funding for a PhD when you are in the United States actually working at that university, contacting professors, networking, as opposed to 5,000, 6,000 miles away here in Algeria through email. So, what type of degree should I earn or target? Well, this depends on you. What are your needs? You have to do your research. I would strongly recommend, even though you're not applying to a specific school as part of the Fulbright, even though you're not applying to a specific degree program, you absolutely should research schools and research degree programs. If you tell me, Joe, I want to earn a master's of political science that focuses on international relations, I'm going to want to know that you understand what an international relations degree does, what it covers, what researching for that is like, because that shows that you've thought the decision out and made a good decision. If you say, I want to earn a master's of mechanical engineering because I want to earn a degree in master's of mechanical engineering, that's not a very good answer, right? So you need to understand the degree and the program that you're doing. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about the research and the study objective. So, who can apply? To apply for the Fulbright program, we ask that you hold a minimum of a bachelor's degree. Now, in the United States, our bachelor's degree is 4 years. Okay, 4 years. So that means for your system, you would need either a 3-year licence and an additional year, or already have a master's degree, or have a 5-year degree program, or have a 4-year degree under a classical system. So that 3-year licence and 1 additional year of schooling. Okay, that could come in the form of a master's program that you're already enrolled in. Um, Obviously, the Fulbright is for graduate level study, so you're going to need to be interested in a master's degree. You need to be proficient in English. Remember, not only are you going to be in a classroom with native speakers, but you're going to be in a classroom with some of the brightest and smartest native speakers in the United States. Not everybody goes to graduate school in the United States, and those that do, they're going to tend to be very successful students. So your English skills are going to need to be able to keep up in terms of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And the last thing, and we'll talk about this a little more, is you'll need to have a recent TOEFL IBT score, ideally of at least a 90, and a GRE test score. The GRE is our aptitude test that we use for graduate admissions. Your GRE test scores should be within the last 5 years. Your TOEFL score should be within, your TOEFL scores are only good for 2 years. So, am I eligible? Let's look at some common questions. If I have a 5-year degree, say a TOEFL, a TESOL master's, or a 5-year engineering program, if you have your degree, absolutely, you are eligible. If you have 4 years in that program and you have not yet completed it, that means that you don't have any degree yet, so you're not able to move up to the next highest level. You would need to earn at least 1 degree first. If you started your Master's 1 for 1 year and you hold the licence, you're eligible. If you have a medicine and pharmacy degree, you're also eligible as well. So 6 years for pharmacy, I believe, 7 years for medicine. And you may say, if the Fulbright doesn't cover medical residency or a medical degree, why would someone with medicine or pharmacy want to go get a master's in the United States? And there are actually some cases where that would make sense. It may be a master's in public health. It may be a master's in hospital administration. I'm sorry?
Chemistry, biology.
Chemistry, biology. It may be related to research. I recently learned, thanks to an Algerian student, there's actually a master's of philosophy in pharmacy. He came in and he told me I wanted to earn a master's in philosophy of pharmacy. I said, that's a fake degree. It doesn't exist. It does exist. Philosophy of pharmacy is actually the way that research is structured and done for drug testing. So if you work in pharmacy or in pharmaceuticals, and the philosophy of how they test drugs and how they set up those drug trials, right? So you get one pill and you get another pill, and hers is made of sugar and yours is the real medicine. You have to make sure that the symptoms are real. So when she comes in and says, "Oh, I'm cured," you know that's the placebo effect, right? She just had sugar. A TOEFL score of less than a 90. I say yes, potentially. If you apply for the Fulbright and you have a TOEFL score, but your TOEFL score is under a 90, we can still select you. And there's 2 ways that we can do this. Number 1, we can have you retake that TOEFL test with a little bit of preparation and try to get a higher score. Or number 2 is sometimes through funding, we're able to get spots where you go to the university a little bit early and you enroll in some intensive English classes first. This is the same thing we've seen with community colleges or other universities. In fact, I think that's the program you're accepted to, right? Yeah. So where the university will say, hey, your TOEFL score is a little low, but we will still take you. We just want you to take some English classes first. So as long as we're able to place you in the university. That's why we ask for that 90 in a TOEFL. It's not that because we're trying to exclude people, it's because we need that so that universities will accept you. I say potentially because we can't necessarily guarantee anything. It all depends on funding and where we're able to slot you in. If you have 4 years of a university, but your degree's a licence professionnel, the vocational track, it's still a degree, it still qualifies as education. If your diploma is issued after the application deadline. So we had some students who were earning their 5-year degree, and they were finishing in late May, but their diploma wasn't going to be issued until later in the summer. In that case, what you need to do is you need to go to your university and ask your university for a provisional attestation. It's a letter by the university saying this student has completed all their coursework, they are set to graduate, their diploma will be issued in September or July. You need to have completed all your coursework, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer for the actual physical diploma to show up, yes? And that's the same thing in universities, right? So technically I earned my master's in May. They didn't actually mail me the physical diploma until August. If you haven't been a university student for several years, absolutely. Oftentimes in Algeria, I think it's very difficult to restart your education after you've been in the professional field for a little bit. And this is something important I want to emphasize. Often the best candidates for U.S. graduate schools are those with experience. I was 28 when I earned my second master's degree, and I was one of the younger people in my graduate classrooms. Okay? So in the United States, it is very common for students to finish their first degree, take time off, work for several years, gain some experience, gain a little more sense of what they want to focus on, and then go back into graduate school. So that's something I did. I taught high school for a couple of years, and then I went back to graduate school. So absolutely don't think that if I have experience, I'm not a good candidate. The flip side of that coin is if you're just getting out of your undergraduate or your master's study and you're looking to continue your studies, don't worry about potentially going back, waiting a few years, or having to apply for the Fulbright next year, or having to apply for the Fulbright multiple times, okay? So, what are the parts of the application? You're going to need to complete the application, all parts of it, online through the Embark system in English. Do not complete it in French. If you complete it in French, what do you think we do with it? We throw it right in the trash, that's right. If you do not complete all the parts, where's it go? Trash. Unfortunately. So please, spend a lot of time with the application. Make sure it is complete, make sure it is thorough, make sure it is filled out correctly, okay? The parts that are going to make up your transcript beyond your Embark form are your transcripts and your diplomas. We want to see your notes. 3 letters of recommendation, your GRE and your TOEFL scores, and the most important parts, your study/research objective and your personal statement. So let's talk about each of these in part. Your letter of recommendation. There is a form on the website that looks exactly like this. This is the Fulbright letter of recommendation that we are asking to see from the students, okay? Now, letters of recommendation I know are not very common in Algerian academic society, so we want to spend a little bit of time talking about this. It's often a missing element for applications. You need 3, and you need to make sure that you are submitting all 3. Ideally, at least 1 should be academic, especially if you've recently finished your studies, or even still studying right now. 1 should be an academic professor. If you are a professional, if you've been out of school 10 years, so at this point, if I was applying for the Fulbright, my references would not be academic. Nobody remembers me from, probably. I hope they remember me, but I doubt they do. It's been a while. So instead, I would look for 3 professional references. Now the references should be people that know you well and can attest to your character in a positive way, okay? Now your mom fits that category, but your mom's not a very good reference, because of course she loves you. She thinks you're great. She's very proud of you, I hope. But they can be other people. So for instance, supervisors at work, professional associates, people you volunteer with, people you work with outside of school or outside of work, things like that, okay? It should be somebody who knows you very well. Both Aaron and I, Aaron a lot more seriously, have dabbled in admissions at U.S. universities. And when somebody sends a letter from, a reference letter that's from Madeleine Albright, the former Secretary of State, it does not carry a lot of weight, even though Madeleine Albright is a very important person. Because we know that Madeleine Albright, how well does she know you? Not very well at all. She's just doing it as a favor. So it's great if your cousin's friend knows Prime Minister Salal and he can write a letter of reference for you. But it's not actually going to carry a lot of weight with us because probably, in all likelihood, Prime Minister Salal doesn't know you very well and thus isn't going to be able to write a very effective reference letter for you. Plus, if you know the Prime Minister intimately, you probably don't need a scholarship, right? You're probably doing okay. Yeah. The letter should be in English. The letter is in English itself there, but we recognize that not everybody who is an academic professor speaks English. Something that you may have to do is have this